we need to verify.
In this case, we don't trust. We're certainly going to verify over the next several days whether he's going to
watch the news, play some guitar. Watch the news and play some guitar.
Military maneuvers. Ukraine marks a day of unity as Russia claims to pull back some troops from the border. We're live in Lviv, Kyiv, and Moscow this hour.
Whilst the Russian figure skate at the centre of the Olympic doping scandal is outshined by new reports, war heads the Beijing Winter Games. And calls for clarity as Prince Andrew settles out of court with no admission of liability. But Brits want to know who will pay up the private or public purse.
Live from London, this is CNN Newsroom with Isa Suarez.
Welcome to the show, everyone. It is Wednesday, February 16th, and we begin with a show of patriotism and defiance in Ukraine, holding a national day of unity in the face of the looming threat of a Russian invasion. U.S. President Joe Biden says Moscow's claims that some of its troops have finished their military drills and are returning to their home bases have not been verified. The Russian troops
satellites and stuff. Why can't we
in a
verify
threatening
it?
position. Meanwhile, Ukraine says an investigation is underway into a cyber attack that targeted the website of its military and two banks. Well, CNN is covering every angle of this story, as you'd expect we would. Alex Marcus is in Mariupol, Ukraine. Trevor Fiken is in Moscow. Our Minister Bell is following US NATO talks in Brussels. And our Michael Hayes, of course, is in Lviv, Ukraine. Michael.
All right, Isa, thanks so much. The Russian Defense Ministry has just released new video which it says shows Russian military vehicles leaving Crimea after finishing up their military exercises. Russia said on Tuesday some of its troops were being sent back to their home bases after drills near Ukraine's border were over. The US, NATO and Ukraine say that would be an encouraging sign, but they haven't seen evidence of a de-escalation so far.
The United States and NATO are not a threat to Russia. Ukraine is not a threat to Russia. Neither the U.S. nor NATO have missiles in Ukraine. We do not have plans to put them there as well. We're not targeting the people of Russia. We do not seek to destabilize Russia. To the citizens of Russia, you are not our enemy. And I do not believe you want a bloody, destructive war against Ukraine.
President Biden was optimistic about the chance for a diplomatic solution to the crisis.
I thought this sounded pretty good, but I think you should have said this like a month or two ago. He's saying this as they're leaving. Possible. As they're possibly leaving.
Russia attacks Ukraine. It would be a war of choice. Or a war without cause or reason. I say these things not to provoke, but to speak the truth. Because the truth matters. Accountability matters. If Russia does invade in the days and weeks ahead, the human cost for Ukraine will be immense. And the strategic cost for Russia will also be immense. The world will not forget that Russia chose needless death and destruction. Invading Ukraine will prove to be a self-inflicted wound.
Now the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says
Man, he really did not have that in him. That did not come naturally. That took him weeks and weeks and weeks to get that out of his poor, pathetic, weak body.
And immediate threat to security for Russia, but said he too does not want war.
He should have said that on day one.
Do we want it or not? Of course not. Our intention is, and we strive to negotiate with our partners on the issues which we race to resolve through diplomatic means.
Now here in Ukraine it is a day of national unity when crowds at the Olympic Stadium in Kyiv unfurled a giant Ukrainian flag to celebrate President Volodymyr Zelensky is scheduled to visit the coastal town or city of Mariupol, meanwhile, to mark this occasion. Now, CNN's Brett Blanken is live for us in Moscow this hour, but we begin in, and Melissa Bell is in Brussels, Belgium. But let's begin with Alex Marquardt, who's in Mariupol, Ukraine, a key city in all of this, and the president coming. Alex, what are you expecting?
Well, we are expecting, Michael, to have President Zelensky here on this day of national unity. Of course, this comes 2 days after President Zelensky mockingly said that today was supposed to be the day of this Russian invasion, and instead he decreed a day of unity. This is a particularly sensitive spot here, Michael, because Mariupol is wedged between these two.
I think there's a few stories behind how we got here,
Russia has been
why I
trying
got
to
to this
encroach
point,
on Ukrainian territory.
or this timing,
We have Donetsk
and
just
why
down
this
the
is
coast
happening
around
I'm going to write it in a story or two pretty soon here.
Russia has been backing separatists
So,
in their fight against the Ukrainians. And then
there's a
we
bunch
have
of different
Crimea,
reasons.
which is not too far away
Most of them
right
are
here
not
on
real
the
good.
Sea of Azov, which of course they occupied and
I
annexed
think
back
dating
in
back to the Trump
2014.
administration.
And Michael, it is really
So
in
it's just like
Crimea
which
that we see this confusion
which section
over
of this
what
do I
Russia's
want to
intentions truly are. The Russians
talk about?
putting out a video this morning that claims that they are pulling back their troops, they are pulling
Because
back their
there's so
weaponry
many off-ramps.
after exercises have taken
That's
place in
true.
Crimea. They say that
Encourage
they have
it
loaded
did
up
because
trains
it's really
with
dumb
troops,
things,
tanks,
I think.
artillery, and that those are all going back
Physical things.
to the mainland in Russia. They're crossing the Kerch Bridge, which they built after
And if Russia
annexing
really wants to
Crimea.
attack, this
So
would
that
be
is
probably a
their
great time to do
evidence.
it
They
because
say
they're
that
acting
they
like
are
they're
pulling
leaving.
back their troops. But at the same time, Michael, we are seeing
But you know,
a
America's in
consistent
Poland,
buildup.
and
We
I think
have
that's a
seen
pretty
a
good idea.
consistent buildup of this.
That was actually a pretty good response. I don't know how I figured that out, but
To invade Ukraine. We
so
have
we
seen
went to neighboring countries with our troops and didn't put any boots on the ground in Ukraine.
that fighter jets have been
Which might have
placed
been
in
a trick or
Russia
a
just
trap to
across the
begin with.
waterway here. We have seen
And
more
so,
satellite imagery showing
but they were there in case they were needed, and also in case lots of refugees went across the border.
Crimea. So,
And they're
we're
NATO,
getting
Poland,
these
I think there's one other country.
mixed messages of both the drawdown, but at the same
Not
time,
about
the U.S. and others convinced that Russia does continue to build up. So
Not aggressive.
it remains very much
Because
to be
if he would have
seen
made
what
an
Russia's
aggressive move,
intentions,
then I could have
truly
given Russia
are.
a
But
reason
today,
to take a swipe
here
at
in
them.
Mariupol, as in cities all across the country, we are expecting to see
And it might have been the
some
plan
kind
all
of
along.
display of unity. As you mentioned, Michael, President Zelensky expected to visit here, this port city of Mariupol, later on this afternoon. Michael.
Yeah, a very strategic city indeed. Alex Marquardt, I appreciate that. Let's switch our attention now to Brussels. Melissa Bell standing by there. Melissa, tell us about this NATO meeting and also what we know about NATO's positioning when it comes to its troops. Where are they? What they're doing?
Well, we know that it's substantial, Michael, that 25 to 30 NATO allies, according to sources here at NATO in Brussels, have already committed, I will already send extra troops or committed resources to this build-up. Now, today's meeting is going to be, first of all, about briefing one another. Defense ministers will be briefing one another about what they've been hearing throughout this shuttle diplomacy we've seen this last few weeks, where so many leaders, foreign ministers, defense ministers have been shuttling to and from Moscow, Kiev, having conversations with their Russian and Ukrainian counterparts. Each is going to be briefing the other about the very latest intelligence they have, and no doubt the American Defense Secretary really taking a lead role in saying what the latest American intelligence is. Because, of course, the big question at this stage, Michael, is whether those Russian
Kind of strange that NATO was,
I
think one of the reasons why NATO was developed was to counter Russian expansion.
And that's a key question. We heard from the Secretary General
And
of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, saying
NATO
yesterday
expanded.
that he hopes that diplomacy
And now
still
there's a
had a
conflict.
chance, but that they had yet to see any tangible
Regarding
signs of de-escalation. So
potential Russian
that
expansion.
question very much at the heart of today's discussion. First of all, that sharing of intelligence on the very latest in terms of Russian capabilities on the ground, but also then perhaps much more substantially, Michael, even as the world seeks peace, this is also a meeting about preparing for war.
It's kind of childish to have like a Russian military club with like Belarus and like a few other countries in it, and then the US with their buddies, and they don't like each other. And what is it? These people think
All right, Melissa, thanks for the update there. Melissa Bell,
all that different.
Brussels. Let's now go to Moscow. That's where we find out Fred Blanken standing by. Still the Russian leadership keeps talking about diplomacy, which is a good thing, of course. This troop withdrawal, as small as it is. Bring us up to date on developments there.
Russia comes to that, US and UK
I know, Michael, and certainly the Russians are
So
making
nobody
a big
knows.
deal out of the
Nobody has
out of the,
binoculars, they're not
withdrawal
watching.
They say that they've conducted over that
Well,
Crimean Bridge, the
speaking
one that Alex was
West-
talking about. They put out
West
some
Ukraine.
video earlier
Ukraine.
today and also put out some news wires about that as well. But of course, it is no secret that there are still a substantial amount of Russian
Man on his
troops
bed.
in and around, or are they around the area of Ukraine. And then also you have those big drills that are also taking place in Belarus as well. And the Russians have said that their forces would also withdraw from there. But nevertheless, obviously the U.S. still said that it is a very dangerous situation that's going on near the Ukrainian border and that an invasion could happen at any time, even though the Russians say there are no plans for that. It was very interesting to see yesterday the talks between Olaf Scholz and Russian President Vladimir Putin, where once again the Russian president has said that so far the answers that the Russians have gotten from the U.S. and from NATO as well to the security demands that they had put forward, which of course involved, among other things, the withdrawal of NATO forces from Eastern European countries, but also guaranteed that Ukraine would never join
I don't know
NATO
if
as well.
Russia,
And so far they feel that the answers
if
they've gotten have
it's
not
not
been
met with force, I don't know if
they do feel
they
that
would
there
feel
are
the
still grounds
consequences
to
that much.
continue those talks. Olaf Scholz, the
Unless
German
they take
chancellor,
real drastic
for his part, says that the
sanctions
West needed to see
and
the
stopping
escalation.
products and
And in
getting
a
other
press
countries
conference
to
after
join
the
in
meeting with Vladimir
sanctions.
Putin, I asked
But
him on
that
what
might happen.
he pressured the Russian president. Here's what he
If
had
they
to say.
invade Ukraine, dozens of countries
We have
could
a very clear strategy, and this is
bring their
first
embassy, their
saying that
close their embassy
if
in
there
Russia
would be a
and
military aggression
refuse to deal with
against
them and stuff like
Ukraine,
that too.
that this would have hard consequences, and we are well prepared to decide united on the necessary sanctions.
We kind of all do the same stuff.
So there the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz speaking after he met Vladimir Putin in the
But it would strain a lot of
Russians, of course, continuing to
economies
say
and a
they
lot of
want
people.
to have a
But I
broad
think these other
discussion
countries
about
would probably
security
willing to do that.
in Europe, and they say that they want their demands to be spoken
I
about. They
think
want
there's a
that to
lot
be
of
a
hype.
longer
I don't
term
think they should spend that much
discussion.
time
So
on
it
it.
certainly looks as though the key issue at
I
hand
think
is
Russia
not
was
one
just
that
trying to
will
make
go
a
away
point
anytime soon.
of the U.S. and NATO and circle every country on the globe and make people nervous. Well, here they're going to encircle Ukraine at least halfway and make people nervous.
To all of you for the great reporting. That'll do it for me from the moment in Lviv in western Ukraine. So now let's go back to Isa Suarez in London. Isa.
Thank you very much, Michael. Very important contact and return to Michael in about 20 minutes or so. The Ukraine border crisis could send U.S. inflation to a rate it hasn't seen in 4 decades. A new analysis from consulting firm RSM shared exclusively with CNN found that if a standoff drives oil prices to about $110 a barrel, U.S. inflation would top 10% on a year-over-year basis. RSM's chief economist says gasoline, as well as home heating costs, would be more expensive in the immediate aftermath of the invasion. U.S. oil prices hit $95 a barrel on Monday. Crude retreated on Tuesday, falling below $92 after Russia's claims of abuse per their troops pulled back. Well, Wall Street also welcomed those reports, those claims from Russia, with the market sharply higher. We saw that on Tuesday, the Dow was up 422 points, ending just over 1% higher. The S&P and Nasdaq also saw some significant gains. In particular, the Nasdaq quite a turnaround from what we saw the previous day, up 2.5%. And I'm hoping, of course, that momentum should carry on into today, and it is expected to, at least with all waters really expected to open higher when trading kicks off this Wednesday. In Washington, Senate Republicans have boycotted a vote on Federal Reserve nominees, halting the entire process and putting other key nominations on hold. Republicans
Senate Republicans boycott halts central bank nominations.
Bank regulator because she has previously called for a crackdown on lending to fossil fuel companies. But Sarah Bloom Raskin has since said banks choose their borrowers, not the Fed. The White House is blasting Republicans for the vote by Senate.
That's totally irresponsible in our view. It's never been more important to have some firm leadership at the Fed to help continue our recovery and fight inflation. And obviously they have a unique role to play, an important, vital role to play as it relates to inflation. And I think Democrats and Republicans have agreed on that for decades. So Republicans are out there saying inflation's a problem, it's a huge issue, we agree, and then they're not even bothering to show up to even vote against these nominees to the Federal Reserve. What message is that sending to the American public?
But if the two sides don't reach an agreement, there's not a lot Democrats can do. They either have to get 60 votes in the Senate, which means 10 from Republicans, or they have to change the rules on a party line vote, known, of course, as the nuclear option. Americans could soon see avocado prices spike and may have a
Yeah, I was going to read about this. Avocado prices could rise after U.S. halts Mexican imports.
Now the U.S. has suspended avocado imports from Mexico. It comes after a death threat made against the U.S. safety inspector, which is now under investigation. CNN's Matt Ribbon has all the details for you from Mexico.
Well, there's one state here in Mexico that is currently legally allowed to export avocados to the United States, and that is the state of Michoacan. And we know that since the weekend, the United States has temporarily suspended Michoacan's
We get a lot of avocados from Mexico. They can't be grown
a little bit more
in
information
North Dakota
as
like
to
this.
why that decision was taken. So,
I think they
according
can
to
grow
a U.S.
year-round or
official
pretty
with
close to in
knowledge
Mexico.
of the matter, a USDA safety inspector who was working here in Mexico, whose job was to make sure that the shipments of avocados bound for the United States met U.S. safety standards. One of those inspectors working in that capacity here received what this official called
a lot of food from
credible
Mexico, bananas
after
and
that
avocados.
inspector did not allow a shipment of avocados to go
I had an
from the
avocado
state
a
of
few days ago.
Michoacan up north to the United States. Now, this official added that it's not yet known
Always says in the
who
little where it's
made this
from.
death threat, and that U.S.
I just get the organic one
here in
if it's
Mexico City
wherever
have
it's from.
already
It's
been
where it's
dispatched
from.
to the state of Michoacan
If I have
to
a
try and
choice,
get to
I'll
the
buy
bottom
local.
of this and figure out how to get these inspections back on track. But this official added, when we asked this official, well, how long will this temporary suspension be in place? The official said, look, there cannot be a security situation where the United States feels like these USDA safety inspectors can't do their job without fearing for their lives. And this official saying that this temporary suspension won't be lifted until the United States is comfortable with the security situation for these inspectors working here in Mexico. This is going to have a big impact depending on how long all of this lasts. Economically speaking, there's hundreds of thousands of jobs that rely on the export industry of these avocados here in Mexico and also in the United States. Consumers are going to see perhaps problems with avocado supply, given that Mexico is far and away the largest exporter of avocados to the U.S. market. So consumers might have trouble finding avocados in the days and weeks ahead. And if they do find those avocados, the price of the avocados that they find
Avocados
might very
are
well go
expensive.
up, according to multiple analysts. That's CNN.
Just per calorie? Well,
Matt Rivers, CNN.
they're one of those foods that's about $1 per 100 calories, which is on the more expensive side, but not that bad. Not out of control. $3 for a real good
New
avocado.
information shows 3 different
This one's on
substances,
sale for
sometimes
$2.50
used to
or
treat
maybe even
heart
$3.50.
conditions, were found in the testing sample for Russia's biggest skater, Kamila Valieva, back in December.
I think that's about what I'm
This
used to.
15-year-old is at the center of Russia's latest Olympic doping scandal. But what's clear to completers remember is solo events. The New York Times
I don't
reports
know.
that on top
I
of the
wouldn't pay
hard
more than
drugs,
like $4 for
promethazine,
that.
the sport of arbitration sport, so Tyson and lercanidine were also found. Now, those two
I tried to help it
substances
make that
are
the
not
high end of
banned.
my body.
Valieva came in at the
100
top of
calories
the
per
women's
buck is
single
pretty good.
skating short program on Tuesday, and
I
is
can
a
find
favourite
like
to win
food
another gold medal this week.
half
Stephen
that,
Jarrett with me now from
but
Beijing with more. And Stephen,
not
first of all, well,
anything,
she
so
skated
anything, two
beautifully
things.
yesterday and was incredibly emotional. You can only imagine how stressful it's been for her. But talk to us about the heart conditions, the heart medications found in her sample, and how actually the news is playing out at the Olympics among other athletes.
For the Olympians who are here in Beijing, they seem to be trying to rise above the fray, mostly declining to comment on the specifics of the case while focusing on their own games and emphasizing the importance of having a level playing field. Now, interestingly, the Chinese state media has mostly ignored the story, and their TV announcers actually make no mention of the doping allegations against her when Valieva competed on Tuesday night. But of course, the New York Times revelation that she tested positive for 3 substances is really throwing even more doubts over the various claims reportedly made by the adults around her, including how one substance was used by her grandfather, another used by her mother to treat her heart condition. It's really painting this increasingly damning picture of her entourage and further convincing a lot of experts, not to mention critics, of her being part of
Russia's long-standing systemic doping problem. And here's what the head of the U.S. anti-doping agency told us just a few hours ago.
Having these three, two declared and one obviously testing positive that wasn't declared, the one that is prohibited, just raises significant red flags and alarm bells that there is someone behind, whether it's coach, doctor, state, that's helping this young athlete and teaching this young athlete to use these substances in order ultimately to increase and enhance performance.
Now, Tiger also told us that even though only one of the three substances is banned, the other two have long been on the radar of anti-doping agencies around the world for their performance-enhancing capabilities. He also pointed out
she's only 15 years old, so there's obviously nothing she saw
was more than
and bought
just a
and
trace
did on
level.
her own
So all of
volition.
this, according to him, is consistent with
And
an
if she does, she's
intentional
a
use
minor,
instead
and
of
so
just
her
an
parents
accidental
would
intake.
be the
He
ones.
says,
Still lots
United
and lots
States,
of
her parents
questions
would
remain in Beijing for
are on the hook
Thanks very
until
much.
she's 18.
Now, it was an unspeakable crime at an elementary school. The massacre sadly left 26 families devastated, but some have finally won a legal.
Some athletes are saying that she shouldn't even be competing at all.
And a massive
She should
operation
just.
to combat human trafficking.
And I think China, actually, it's the International Olympic Committee or something like that is saying she can. But I don't know if they're doing it out of pressure.
We can't arrest our way out of this problem. We can't legislate our way
Several
out of this
athletes,
problem.
Olympic athletes,
We
and
need
other people
communities to
spoke
stand
up and
up.
said,
We
yeah,
need people to
everyone's
enter this
training
fight, understand what's happening,
and hoping
reclaim
that
our streets,
they're
reclaim
doing
our
it the right.
neighborhoods, and
Some people are
reclaim
doing
our
it the right
schools.
way.
This is on us.
She shouldn't compete at all. I think they're saying she's not going to medal.
Essential Mist Aroma Fragrances for an exhilarating blend
Which is
of
an interesting concept. So you should let the girl compete. And if she wins a gold medal, just don't give it to her.
When your family
I think
members
they
are
said there's no
leaving
medal
is
ceremony if that's what's
unacceptable,
happening.
and honestly, if you're
Lead across the country. I spoke to Christina Lee's landlord
So what if you get
yesterday,
silver medal?
and he said that lawmakers who push soft on crime policies are just out of touch with the communities that they serve. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, to be
This is
honest,
for the conservation.
I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. I'm obviously not going to share on national television where, but even in this neighborhood where there's security guards and people walking all the time,
Maybe
walking
the
their
Olympic athletes
dogs,
should have the option
I'm
of competing
nervous
on some
when
other
I
team
leave
if
my
they're
apartment.
struggling in some country.
And that's never felt that way before. And I think the amount of people that are leaving our cities for other states and
For all we know, she
the
could have been pressured
expectations
into
that we
doing it.
want to create a great economy, my hope in coming on
She
this
could be too
is,
afraid to open her mouth
can
right
we
now.
work together with government officials to actually make this city really great and actually make this a place where people want to be? And for me, that's the number one priority that we're missing out on.
Yeah, I think you're onto something with CEOs pressuring lawmakers. Edward, you have the platform. You're using it well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Scott?
Yeah, the time for words is long since past. The crime crisis has gone from big city streets into America's schools, and in one Maryland district alone, more than 1,000 crimes have been reported this year alone. We're talking to a concerned dad about the devastating impact of defunding campus police. And it's okay for the rich and famous to do it at the Super Bowl, but the LA Times says it's too soon to let your kids take their masks off in the classroom. Talking about the op-ed that's getting a lot of reaction this morning. Don't go anywhere.
So strange. It's the weirdest thing, man. God, wow. How passive aggressive is this? And these people act this way. So these conservatives are angry at the liberals because the liberals were telling everybody to wear masks, and then they went to a Super Bowl and didn't wear a mask, and so the conservatives want to point that out and say that's hypocrisy, and these are bad people or something. It's funny. I don't think either of them, I guess, is seriously as they think themselves. Because I'm not going to listen to Snoop Dogg or Ben Affleck or any of these other people when it comes to anything they say, masks, whatever. So these Fox people, these Fox people feel inclined to point out how these liberals that were bothering them wear masks. Apparently they were bugging them or bugging policymakers and trying to, I don't know, just masking. They're maskers. They're damn maskers, and now they're not wearing masks. Because I definitely don't care what they want to do either way, and I definitely don't care what they say. So I don't understand what the big deal is. I think these people feel important when they identify these other people that they identify as important.
The massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012 stands out. Even in a country where mass shootings have become painfully frequent, 20 children and 6 adults were killed. And though efforts to pass gun control measures have failed, Erica Earl reports the mad families of 9 of the victims have won a hard-fought legal battle.
These are these moments where there's any kind of victory or forward progress that we want to celebrate, and then it just kind of the gut punch that, where Daniel's still going. It's a strange psychological dynamic that continues to beat the crap out of us.
617 Sandy Hook School. Caller is indicating she thinks there's someone shooting in the building.
Daniel Barden was just 7 years old when he was murdered at Sandy Hook Elementary. One of 20 children and 6 adults killed that day in 2012.
What has happened, what has transpired with that school building, will leave a mark on this community and every family impacted.
Overnight, memorials blanketed this small Connecticut town. Images of angels, messages of strength for 26 families, now faced with an unimaginable horror.
One moment we had this dazzling, energetic 6-year-old little boy, and the next, all we had left were echoes of the past. Every day is a realization that he should be here, yet he's not.
The shooter that day, a deeply troubled 20-year-old, killed his mother before opening fire at the school with a Bushmaster semi-automatic AR-15 style rifle. 2 years later, the families of 9 victims filed a lawsuit against the makers of that gun, Bushmaster and its parent company, Remington. A move seen widely as an uphill battle with the federal protections that shield gun makers from most legal liability in wrongful death cases brought by family members.
This victory, this landmark historic victory, sends a forceful and compelling message to manufacturers and to the insurance and banking industries that support them. This is a high-risk market, it is not profitable, and you will be held accountable.
That historic victory, a $73 million settlement with Remington and its insurers, which also allowed the families to make thousands of internal company documents public, according to the plaintiff's attorneys.
We wanted to make sure that they found everything
suing
that
a
had been
shooter
done
in civil court.
This settlement is a tremendous risk for gun manufacturers because
It'll be like
it allows
suing Toyota
and the public
and
to
somebody
lift
runs
the
over people
curtain
with a
and
Toyota.
see how guns are marketed and to whom and why and how much is spent on that.
While the settlement is a clear victory, the families insist it is not justice.
It's very emotional. It's just connected to our little Daniel. It's the whole reason. And it's because he was murdered as a direct outcome of some of what was going on.
True justice would be our 15-year-old healthy and standing next to us right now. But Benny will never be 15. He will be 6 forever because he is gone forever. The CNN has reached out to Remington and its insurers for comment. We have not yet heard back. In Trumbull, Connecticut, I'm Erica Hill, CNN.
A New York girl reported missing in 2019 has been found alive. Police says she was hidden under this staircase inside a home north of New York City. She was found along with her mother, who do not have legal custody. Authorities have searched for the girl in this house before, but the resident always denied she was there. Detectives finally made the discovery on Monday after receiving it.
Wow. Hidden under staircase
Armed
for 2 years?
officers were up and down those steps several times and never heard the child, never made a sound.
But the detective said there was something odd about the stairs, just the way they were constructed, the way they felt when he was walking on them. And he said he took a closer look at the stairs. And between two of the stair boards, there's a crack. He used a flashlight, looked in there, and he saw what he believed was a blanket at the bottom. So they used a Howden tool, and they started removing the steps of the staircase. And sure and behold, they found little bare feet.
Police have arrested a child not custodial parent as well as another relative. The girl is now with police and guards. Authorities in California arrested nearly 500 people in a statewide
obviously must have
crackdown
fed
on
her,
human
so they
trafficking.
hid her
That includes
and
suspected
just treated her like an
traffickers
animal or
and sex
something?
buyers. Police say they rescued more than 70 adult victims and 8 child victims during the week long operation. The Los Angeles County Sheriff had this message to listen.
We and our partners stand with each victim of this heinous crime. You are the focus of this endeavor. We're here for you. We're here to help you reclaim your freedom from the binds of sex trafficking and to provide you with important tools to rebuild your lives. To the traffickers, the LA County Sheriff's Department and our partners will not tolerate the enslavement and trafficking of others in any form. We will seek you out, we will find you, and prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
The 7th annual police operation involves dozens of federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies working together. Russia says some of its troops are pulling back from the Ukraine border, but satellite images of the military hardware tell a different story. We have the details for you just ahead. Plus, with his reputation already intact, Prince Andrew reaches a settlement with Virginia Giuffre in her sexual assault lawsuit against him. We'll have the latest next.
Out about this issue. I've been reaching out.
It's interesting that if I'm not mistaken, I think that the guy Prince Andrew was sort of excommunicated from his family, and and his royal family, so he had to remove his titles and stuff, and then he settled a lawsuit afterwards. So I bet that was not a coincidence how that happened in that order. They might have wanted to sue like the entire royal family estate and stuff, and they might have gotten wind of the lawsuit, or it might have been litigated or whatever, and they said, we gotta cut you off because they're gonna come after us, or what's ours, or something. Because he said they settled out of court, and so we'll never know if he's innocent or if he's guilty, and we'll never know how much he paid. Unless, I don't know, somebody violates the agreement and says it, or maybe there's a clause and it says like in 25 years you can say, here, 15 years. On Fox News, they're showing people with masks now. They're showing the guy, this is so juvenile, man. Who cares when these people
Angeles
say
County health officials ordered everyone in attendance to wear a mask. Meanwhile, the LA Times says schools should keep the mandates in place. The paper's editorial board writing, quote, schools are doing fine with masks.
So I don't know where I
Dropping
fit.
mandates now would be premature.
Should I have cared more what these people thought about masks?
It's fine for kids to wear masks because they don't complain about it and they're used to it. California officials will reassess the school mask mandate at the end of February.
That is not the experience that I'm seeing. Kids not complaining about it. You saw the reaction with that one
viral video.
Released the mask. Those kids were happier than if Santa walked in bringing candy and the Easter Bunny.
Happened in Las Vegas. I spoke to the teacher who filmed it. She said it was a great moment.
Awesome.
She didn't expect how excited the kids would be and was happy to see it.
Yeah, maybe the LA Times should have actually spoken to some kids for their article. Time now, 34 minutes after the hour. Alec Baldwin now being sued by the family of the cinematographer that he shot and killed on his Rust movie set. But his response to the lawsuit is leaving some people a little shocked. We'll share it with you.
And a civil liberties group is carrying to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for invoking emergency powers to shut down the Freedom Convoy. Could America be next? Kara Frederick joins us live.
Thanks for bringing me with you guys.
luisteren naar Mr. and Mrs. Lopez?
Ja.
She won't have a lot of commercials. Should be used to not watching any commercials on YouTube and just giving the show.
Welcome back to CNN Newsroom. I'm Edith Flores in London.
And I'm Michael Holmes in Lviv in western Ukraine. I want to update you now on our top story this hour, and in fact just moments ago, NATO Secretary General and the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin gave some remarks ahead of a meeting of defense ministers. Russia's defense ministry has released a video, meanwhile, that it says shows military equipment crossing the bridge from Crimea into Russia. This coming a day after Russia said some of its troops were being sent back to base. Western officials are skeptical of that announcement, however. In a message on Tuesday, President Joe Biden warned of an invasion of Ukraine and said that it is distinctly possible that could happen. While it is still a question whether Russian troops are actually pulling back, the arrival of more military equipment to the border region is clear. Jim Shudo reports now on the latest satellite imagery.
New video from the Russian Ministry of Defense as it claims that some units have completed their exercises and are now returning to their home bases. The Russian military did not identify the locations in the videos. CNN, however, geolocated one rail yard where these tanks were being loaded onto a train. It's in Crimea. Asked if NATO has been able to verify Russian assertions that some units are going home, Estonia's Prime Minister told me not yet.
We believe it when we see it, but we don't see it right now. Russia has done this military build-up around Ukraine for already months, so nothing happens in a few days or few hours, and we haven't seen any real de-escalation yet.
And there is still plenty of Russian armor near Ukraine and moving closer still. Among the more recent arrivals, transport and attack helicopters. These in an improvised base near Belgorod, just a few miles from the Ukrainian border. Perhaps most notable, these images showing more than 60 helicopters at a disused airfield in northwest Crimea. There was nothing there just a few days ago. Helicopters shown are a mix of attack and transport aircraft about 40 miles from Ukraine's southern coast. Just off the coast, the Russian Defense Ministry's media outlet is reporting on the Black Sea Navy drills, which involve some 30 ships. In satellite images, Maxar also detected that the Russian Air Force has deployed at least 10 Su-34 strike bombers to an airport near Krasnodar in southern Russia. The airfield is some 70 miles across the Sea of Azov from the Ukrainian coast. It will be a few days before new satellite images and video can confirm that at least part of the force of 130,000 Russian troops have indeed moved away from Ukraine. For now, a substantial force on land, in the air, and at sea remains on three sides of Ukraine. Jim Shudo, CNN, Kyiv.
And our thanks to Jim Shudo for that report. I'm Michael Holmes in Lviv in western Ukraine. There will be much more on the tensions in Ukraine coming up on early start. That'll be in about 20 minutes or so. But for now, throw it back to Mr. Suarez in London. He's up.
Thanks very much, Michael. Now to the investigation into the U.S. Capitol insurrection. The January 6th committee has issued a new round of subpoenas as they examine the fake electoral plot aimed at overthrowing the 2020 presidential election. The subpoenas were sent to two members of the Trump campaign and four prominent Republican officials from battleground states. Investigators are digging into efforts to send illegitimate electorates from key swing states that former President Donald Trump lost to Washington to delay certifying Joe Biden's victory. And we have an update on Sarah Palin's lawsuit against the New York Times. Attorneys for the former U.S. vice presidential candidate say they are considering an appeal after jurors found the newspaper not liable for defamation. The judge in the case had already said he would dismiss the suit, whatever the jury's verdict was, because Palin's attorneys did not prove actual facts. There's a lot of speculation here in the UK about Prince Andrew's future and his role really in public life now that he's settled the sexual abuse he was facing from Putin in Ukraine. has civil suit to dispute the use of lawful abuse when she was just a teenager in December, alleging she was trafficked to him by the late Olympic sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. We don't know how much Prince Andrew will have to pay. The many are wondering how he will fund the settlement from all this. I'm joined by Anna Stewart. And Anna, it seems to me, at least from the papers here, that is the clarity that everyone wants to know. What will the speech look like, but also who's paying for this? I want to give our viewers just some of the typical papers. There is one, so you can see there, does 12 million deals of hold sex claim. The Sun here as well, Philippe, it's his final disgrace. And one last one, 10 million humiliation. One paper puts it at 12 million, the Daily Telegraph. Of course, we don't know. What does this all mean? And as people ponder these questions this morning.
I think it means certainly looking at the headlines that he has not had his name cleared in the court of public opinion, and people want to know, yes, how much is this settlement, both in terms of the money he'll be paying Virginia Giuffre, but also to her charity, which is part of the settlement agreement. We don't have a figure on it, and we don't know who will pay for it, because can Prince Andrew, who had no discernible income apart from a very small naval pension, afford it? We don't know what the sum is. He did recently, apparently, speculatively sold a chalet in Switzerland. Could that be used? Or will he be leaning on Her Majesty the Queen? Now, not in terms of the public purse, but of course she's wealthy in her own right. So he could fund it with the private estate, the Duchy of Lancaster. Those are some of the questions. Also, should he lose the Duke of York title? He has already been stripped of his Royal Highness title. He has been stripped of his military title. There is no return, I would say, for public life for Prince Andrew at this stage. But clearly, lots of people within the British public want to know more.
What about the tone and the language? Because when I read it, it seemed to me like a huge win for Giuffre here.
It's an incredibly short statement. It is very cleverly worded. Up to this stage, it should be remembered that Prince Andrew's legal team called the claims frivolous. They said they were baseless. Prince Andrew said he'd never even met Virginia Giuffre. The statement yesterday said Prince Andrew has never intended to malign Miss Giuffre's character. But at one stage, in October, his team actually accused her of just trying to make some money. She wants to achieve another payday at his expense. So in terms of the change of tone, a huge victory, but he hasn't accepted liability.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tuna. Now, still to come right on the show, Team USA aims to keep dominating men's slopestyle, but they've got some competition this year. We'll have the latest victory as well as defeat from the Beijing Olympics after the break with our boy White.
2 loads of snot-covered laundry.
Of disinformation, misinformation, or malinformation on social media as potential terrorist activity. So there's chaos on both of our borders right now, but we should look to the north and see what they're doing and know that it is already happening here beyond guarding innocent Americans.
You know, Karen, I wonder what happened to caring about freedom of speech? You see it on
But
college
it's not
campuses
making
all
these
the
people
time,
stop
where
whatever
students, they care
he's
more
doing
about
so
safe
far.
spaces than wanting to debate somebody
At least
with a
according to what I
differing
read, I
view.
don't know what I'm saying.
What happens to our country long term because of this?
You know, I'm really afraid that the next generation of citizens are not going to reap the benefits of the First Amendment. Because as we've seen with the government and tech companies working hand in hand to police speech, you know, they no longer have a one justice system for all, right? There's a two-tier justice system. One for people who believe what the Biden administration believes or whatever the prevailing leftist ideology is saying, which is right today. And then the others who are more critical and are like, actually, we're a little skeptical about, you know, the Wuhan lab leak or a theory when that was perpetuated or the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop is misinformation. Maybe it's real. So you can sort of see that freedom of expression right now, it's being chipped away at by the marriage of the government and big tech companies to police speech.
Yeah, you know what, I think you're absolutely right, because a lot of people say these social media companies, they're private companies, they can make their own rules, but if they're doing the bidding of the Democratic Party, when does that become government censorship?
GoFundMe and some other company, I think,
Precisely, and you had Jen Psaki in July get up at the White House podium and say,
truckers'
we're
ability
working
to
with
raise
Facebook to
money
purge
for
12 disinformation accounts. Within a month, those
for their
accounts were
cause.
off Facebook.
Very good
She
point.
does it again when it comes to
That's really
Spotify.
crazy.
You know, when does it end?
Yeah, I
didn't
think
know
you
to
make
say
an
that.
excellent point there.
But there
Karen
are
also saying that there is
alternatives.
chaos
There are
happening
some
on both
conservative
sides of our
alternatives
border.
that people
Thank you so
end
much
up
for joining us
using
this morning.
when that happens.
Thank you, Carly.
All right, you bet. Todd?
Carly is President
I
Biden's
think in
agenda
this case,
too
the
toxic
alternative
for
to
Democrats.
GoFundMe might
Another one just quit.
have
Even
had
David
an issue
Axelrod,
too.
the
Maybe it
former
was the
Obama
Canadian
guy, is
one.
warning Biden that
Something.
he's starting to sound a little bit out of touch. We'll get Sean
The
Duffy's
Canadian
thoughts on
banks
that
are
coming up.
putting in
And
something.
Texas is taking the fight to Facebook,
I
suing
heard
the
a
social media
partial
platform
conversation with some
for
truckers
stealing.
talking yesterday. They were talking live on some kind of Facebook group. Twitter group. Seemed like just normal conversation.
And it is a good day to be part of Team USA in the men's free ski slope style. On day 12 of the Beijing Winter Games, US athletes took both the gold and the silver medals in the event, with Sweden taking the bronze. Monitoring all for us, Coy Wire joins me now from outside Beijing with the latest from the Olympics. And Coy, a big, big day for Team USA in the slope.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you. These temperatures were well below freezing, though. We'll start with that men's slalom. Tricky slopes for them. 34 of the 88 competitors didn't even finish the opening leg, but the tall, machine-like 24-year-old Francis standing 6'3" or 1.91 meters. Clement Noel slithering his way through the gates. He was sixth heading into the run number 2, but his combined time was 1 minute 44.09 seconds. Enough for his first Olympic medal, and it's the color gold, like his helmet. It's the long legs. They were like pistons navigating that course. It's France's first Olympic gold in alpine skiing since 2006. He was screaming and fist pumping afterwards. He edges out Johannes Strolz of Austria by 0.6 of a second to take the gold. And now, in free ski slopestyle final action,
I told him.